Welcome to game streaming class at the University of Utah. We have a special guest here today, Scott Johnson of Frogpants Studios. I will have him introduce ourselves. We have all the students from my class here and anyone else who wants to join in pretty much.
Awesome. Yeah, the public link on Twitch, I guess. Anybody can discover this. I'm Scott Johnson. I formed a company in 2009 officially, although I've been doing this since, like 99 in some form or another. But in 2009, 10 years into it, I formed a company called Frogpants Studios, and it's just basically still sort of just me, but it is my full-time job now. It was 2009 that I decided to pull up stakes and go for it. And I've been doing it ever since. And it involves everything from game streaming to content creation, podcasts, and those are all streamed live on Twitch as well. So there's a lot of streaming involved there. I also stream art. There's a whole illustration and sort of art side of my career that is about equal to the podcast / streaming side. So it's really just two giant chunks of content. There's me drawing all the time, selling prints, doing commissions, illustrating books, this sort of stuff, and often streaming me creating that stuff. And then there's the other side, which is about 1 million listeners a week for various podcasts. I have shows that are very gaming related. I have a show called The Instance, which focuses on World of Warcraft. We've been doing that since 2006 and still going strong. Do that on Fridays. Probably still our biggest audience. I have a daily morning show that's just kind of a fun general interest goofball show in the morning. That does really well. I have a show about movies. I have another video game show about like hardcore gaming. I have one that's a little more about indies and small stuff. I was talking about Loop Hero before we got started here. That would qualify as one of those. So we covered that on that show. And all told, it's about 1 million listeners a week, and it's mostly through podcasting medium. So people are listening on their phones and other ways as well, but mostly on their phones. The stream is usually maybe only a 2-3% of the people who actually hear my content, but it's still a significant number. It's a couple of thousand every morning who hear the morning show as an example. And then it goes out to, 100,000 or whatever for that day. So I have this really weird combination of streaming and live stuff and pre-recorded stuff. And I work with advertisers, and I also do a lot of crowdfunding. And so a lot of my projects, including a couple of the game shows, are supported by the listeners. And all of that combined with the art side of what I do has added up to be my career. Basically, here's how it went. When I was 8 years old, and this is true, okay, true story. All I wanted to do was draw all the time and make radio shows. I mean, that was all I was interested in. And that is kind of all I did. I ran around the house with a tape recorder all day, and I drew all the time. I had countless sketchbooks just full of art, and didn't know how I was going to do it. But I just knew that one day I wanted to, that's what I wanted my life to be, my career to be.
So what radio shows?
So back in the day, I used to do, the stuff I did on my own was all just dumb stuff I created. But as I got a little older, I got invited to do, here in Salt Lake City, I got invited on KSL on the weekends to do a computer show in the 90s. It paid so bad that it literally paid nothing. Like I got nothing for it. But I would come in on Saturdays. We'd answer a bunch of phone calls. People call in going, my DVD-ROM drive has a booger in it or whatever. And, whatever their problems were. And we would try to help them on the air. It was a really good experience, though. It taught me how to do live radio and, react on the spot and answer questions, interact with people in that way. So it was really invaluable stuff. But even though that was kind of a boring bunch of topics, I was really, really into it. I really liked doing it. And when that ended, I just knew at some point I was going to find a way to make this happen as a job, as a gig, as a something. I didn't know what. Along comes the internet and makes all that possible. And for a lot of us, this is ancient history, given how much time has passed. Somebody these days, let's say you're 15 to 25, the internet's a known quantity. You already kind of know what's up. The platforms are there. So you know about Twitch, you know about YouTube, you know about Spotify's podcasting list, like whatever it is, that platform exists. Let's say, TikTok's maybe a good example of something more recent, but it's a known quantity with huge audiences and opportunities for young creators to get out there and make a thing. What happened to me basically is the internet came along and suddenly there was a way to publish my comics and to publish my artwork and do it in a way that cut out all the middlemen, and I could control it, sell my own stuff, not have to have a manager. Same thing for the radio side. I could make radio content, audio content, video content, and not have to deal with anybody else but myself in making it, and work directly with the people who want my content, my actual audience. So the last 12 years or so of the company being the company, that's been the focus, is working with the community, building content they want, new projects, cool Kickstarters here and there. And it all worked out to be basically my 8-year-old dream. I get to draw and talk on the radio for money and pay my bills. And that's all I ever really wanted. So, and I got to have a family at the same time and an awesome wife and, a car and a house and all the stuff you need. And if you can see my gaming PC over here, you'd all be jealous because it's rad. Like all the little stupid toys that I wanted, especially given my interest in video games. It's all possible now because of that. And that's partly why I like to do these things. I like to talk about that because it's a good reminder to me about everything that it took to do it, and also a chance to tell everybody else that there is a way to do it, even if right now you look at the sea of streamers and you go, well, I really want to be Ninja. And I get it, man. Totally get it. Everybody wants to be freaking Ninja or somebody else in his category. But there's only so much room for the Markipliers, Ninjas, PewDiePies, whoever's of the world, and they're already in those spaces. And a lot of that is luck and timing and other factors you can't control. It's a little like every kid wants to be in the NBA, but some 0.000 something percent ever actually sets foot on a professional basketball court. It's a little bit like that. So what I try to tell people is, instead of looking at it and going, I'm going to be the next #1 YouTuber and I'm going to make Minecraft videos that blow everybody's mind. It's not that that's impossible or that you can't make some dent in that space. Okay. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but it's so saturated with other people making Minecraft videos, as an example, that you've got to try to find something more unique and nichey. That's where the money is now. Like, even when I started my World of Warcraft podcast in 2006, there were like 2 other shows that tried to cover the game, and they were bad. And that's why I started it, because I wanted a show I would like, and so I made it. And I didn't realize what I was doing. I was basically filling a need that a whole bunch of people had. They wanted this particular piece of content about their fandom, and it took off like really fast and really hot for me and caught me by surprise. But it was the right thing at the right time. If I was to start one today, it would not be the right thing at the right time. Like, I still have great volume of listeners for that show, but starting from scratch today would be kind of silly, because now there are hundreds, maybe thousands of shows that focus on World of Warcraft alone, not to mention all the other shows that are about video games or gaming in general, gaming culture. So I'm always trying to find that unique niche as well. And my advice to people is, don't try to just mimic the successes you're seeing. In some cases, you don't want their level of success. What you want is something, there's a happier medium, and you can find it and you can build your community and you can make money in this space without being one of those guys or one of those girls or whoever the hot thing is. You don't have to be that. You can be something else. You can be uniquely yourself, and you can find your niche. So if there's ever a message that's like paramount or #1 for me, it's that.
So how would you describe your niche or niche, however you say it, from the time that you started that World of Warcraft to now? Is your niche still the same, or how's it evolved during that time?
Well, I mean, it's evolved in a few ways. Like, there's just generally, I've built an audience that now I can be more experimental with, because they're just there. So I know if I announce tomorrow that I'm going to do a 12-part documentary on something, they'll be there to see it and listen and support it. And they might even be willing to kickstart it or do a Patreon or whatever. Like, they're already there. And they're already willing, because I've given them what they wanted before, and they're willing to invest in me for future things. So that didn't exist in the beginning. In the beginning, you just had to scrape by. And I didn't come into this like, a lot of people see like a famous comedian will say, I'm going to get into podcast, or I'm going to make YouTube videos or whatever. They immediately have a gigantic advantage, because they're bringing with them 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 people that were going to come no matter where they went. And they suddenly have like a really beefed up starting point.
Right.
A lot of people like me and like you and like a lot of other people, we don't have that option. We didn't come from fame. So to build audience, to build whatever level of internet fame you want, you have to earn it one step at a time, one video at a time, one show at a time, one stream at a time. And it takes consistency and looking at the long haul and knowing that ahead of time, that this is going to be a bit of a beast. Now, you might get lucky and get a few breaks. And of course that'll happen, because, luck favors the bold, and as bold as you can be is great. But don't go in expecting it to be handed to you. I've had people come to me and say, look, I want to start a webcomic, or I want to start a podcast. And the very next thing out of their mouth is, how do I get t-shirts made? Or how do I get mugs made or something like that? Because I do a lot of those now. And I say to that, well, #1, stop thinking about that. #2, wait 10 years after you've really built the thing up before you even start coming close to that. That may happen sooner or later for people, but the point is that's not the starting point. It never is. You're not going to sell anything. You have to sell yourself and your content and your voice and your authenticity before any of that other stuff kicks in. And you also have to decide at that point of entry if you want to decide the kind of content creator you're going to be. And by that, I mean, are you going to try to be so edgy that you just become the edgelord of the internet and everybody tunes into you because you're so edgy? At least you think that's what's going to happen. Or are you going to be cool and nice and friendly with your chat room and generous and do prizes and that sort of thing? Are you going to be an a-hole and, say terrible things on social media or whatever? Whatever your stance is going to matter. I have a friend who told me once, I've never forgotten it. I think I said this in your last class or last time I was on, but he said, we get the chat rooms we deserve. And I really believe that if you want good quality interaction with people, meaningful relationships, friendships that can spring out of this and become lifelong friendships and true community building, then know that you're going to have to be that kind of content creator. You got to be a cool guy or lady. You got to get it done in a way that's positive. If you want to be toxic and terrible, I guess you can go ahead and do that, but just know that that's the kind of chat room you're going to get. Regardless of size, you're going to attract what you put out there. And so, I don't know, that's always felt like an important thing to mention, as I would argue that the number one lesson for me over the last 15 years or so of doing all of this is that community is everything, meaning their loyalty to you as a viewer, watcher, whatever, that translates to who's paying your bills, who's tipping you on Twitch, who's your number one Patreon supporter that month, or who watches the ads on YouTube that help get you paid. Whatever it is, you have to cultivate that, and you have to do it meaningfully, or you're wasting your time, in my opinion.
So just out of curiosity, so over the years of doing this, have you ever experimented with being more edgy and more like rude, like jerky? And has that...
Not really. In the early days, I think I may have been a little too reserved and being unwilling to be myself more. Like early on, it's like anybody in any medium, your first time on mic or camera, you're trying to, do the best you can. But if you go back and listen to it now, you're like, oh my gosh, dude, that was so bad. And it's usually bad because you were nervous and you just didn't really show who yourself, your kind of humor, whatever, didn't come out. It's like a mannequin version of you. And I was no different. I didn't know it at the time. And I may have had some advantages or felt a little more comfortable than some, but still, it's pretty stilted stuff in those early days.
Right.
We're talking like 04, 05, just rough times. But you got to start somewhere. So that's okay. But always my advice is, and the way I ended up doing it was just be yourself, because your audience isn't stupid and they know when you're not being yourself, or if you're portraying something that you're not. And that includes everything from, I don't know, if you're going to claim to be the best player in Call of Duty Warzone, okay, and you're going to act like you're the best thing in there and that you're going to win every single match and it's all going to come down to you, or that you're always going to be the one with the chicken dinner in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or whatever, but then don't deliver on that, like you're not actually that good, then you're wasting your time. And that's aimed at like specifically at game streamers. But I know plenty of streamers who have all sorts of success on stream, on Twitch rather, and YouTube and other stuff by simply being themselves, and that means being fallible, having the ability to fail and do it on screen and laugh about it and be self-effacing about it and move on. And your audience is now in on the joke. They are part of the gentle ribbing you're giving yourself, and by the end of the stream, everybody had a good time, you all laughed. It's your personality that comes out the most, and they don't care that you weren't the best player in Fortnite that night. So you just it's some of those kind of decisions that can bite you in the butt if you're not careful. I just think trying to pretend that you're something you're not will never get you anywhere, because either now, tomorrow, or 5 years from now, they'll figure it out and you'll be left in the lurch. It never works out for those people.
Awesome. So if I can go back a little bit, when you were talking about know your audience, I ask my students to do this all the time. So I thought I'd ask you, like, who is your audience? Like, do you know what type of a person listens to your content?
Yeah, but I only know this because, how do I start with this? The one thing you will want to do, no matter what you're trying to cultivate, is you're going to want to be open to that communication all the time. And it's never been easier, whether you're just getting feedback from email or something more interactive like Discord channels or whatever, like whatever method you're using to talk to people, WeChat, direct text, whatever, that's what matters, because you're interfacing with people, you're learning about who they are, learning about who you are, you're taking time to talk to them. That's meaningful to them, and sometimes more meaningful than you know. I've had all kinds of stories come to me about, oh, I can't believe that one time you took time out to talk to me about this thing. I couldn't believe it. It changed my life. And, some of that stuff's embarrassing and hard to understand how you could change somebody's life, but you can, and you can do it in some pretty meaningful ways. Even if that's not your goal, that those opportunities are there. But the other way is, and this is a little bit pre-COVID, but for 10 years, I ran an event called Nerdtacular every year. And some of your students may know Corinne Lewis, fellow professor there at the U. She's an old friend of mine from forever ago, and she helped me run it. And basically every year we would rent the entirety of Snowbird up in the canyon, and we would sell tickets and invite anybody who wanted to get a ticket to come out there and be with us. And by us, I mean me and all the people I collaborate with, co-hosts from shows, friends. I have a D&D show on the weekend. Those guys all came. Like, just everybody who puts out content on my network. We would all go up there. The fans would go up there, and we'd fill that place with 1,000 people, as many as they'd let us have. That was about the maximum. We had to stop selling tickets at that point. And then we did that every year. And and every year we'd have some really cool special guests. We had the lead creative director at Blizzard Entertainment at the time, Chris Metzen, came and spoke to us. We had a lot of Blizzard people, the music guy in charge of music at Blizzard, people at Riot, the League of Legends company, and Valorant and all that. They came, spoke to us, and hung out with fans and everything. Those events were crucial in that relationship building or understanding who my audience was. And so to answer your question, yes, I think I do. And I know it from that experience, from being willing to, again, pre-COVID, shake everybody's hand and match faces to names I'd seen online and whatever. I've seen a guy's name in a chat room a million times, and I finally get to meet him. We try to make that a big deal. We have a Vegas meetup every year. Hopefully we'll have that again soon. These little meetups, BlizzCon we always go to because we're all big Blizzard fans. So that was a thing we would always do every year. And again, more people would show up and more people would show up. And before you knew it, you just had this long list of people that you know by face or name. And you quite literally know who your audience is. Sometimes you never meet them, right? They're going to be people I'm never going to meet. But it was always really cool to interface that way.
Oh, that's a really good perspective. I know I hear that all the time. Go to conventions, do meetups. I know in Salt Lake we even have like a Twitch meetup group who meets frequently so they can meet other streamers and get to know them and that kind of thing. Yeah,
I mean, those events were plentiful before all this shutdown. Really curious how the future of that looks. Hopefully we get all this under control and it takes us to a place where we can have some semblance of that normalcy come back, because there were countless events for nerds like us all over the country. Yep. All over the world every year. So there was always a place you could go and find like-minded people. Well, in my case, it was just this really cool honor to meet the people who, in some cases, literally pay my bills by supporting my content, by buying my prints, by showing up to the morning show every day and contributing that way, or telling their friends, even as small as it sounds, as a way to grow the shows and stuff. So yeah, that stuff's crucial. And now it doesn't mean you have to go out and meet every single person that ever watched you stream. And for some people, at some level, it starts to become a dangerous concept. Like, back to Ninja, he would never, shouldn't say never, but it'd be bad for him to just show up in a mall. Assuming malls ever come back. These are all dependent on post-COVID situations, but he could get mobbed or whatever. So there's levels, right? And I've plenty of times where somebody would recognize me in public, or I was walking down the road, a bunch of people were honking at me the other day, rolled down their window and said, "Hey, I've been listening to the show. I heard you lived around here. How's it going?" Like cool moments like that. But I don't have to worry about it that much, right? The bigger you get, the more you have to worry about that stuff. That's a whole different animal. But
that's awesome.
That's not what I was aiming for, so it's okay with me. I wanted something right down the middle, like a nice, not too stressful, like internet fame is better than real fame. I'll say it that way.
I'll take your word for it. That's so. Pappy's a gamer. Before you got scrolled up too high, asked, "How do you motivate yourself when you hit a low point?"
Oh man! So I have a good example I can actually show you on screen here. So a couple of weeks ago, I was struggling to get some creativity going, just having a little bit of basically artist block, and I just was struggling. I was trying to get some artwork done for somebody that I owed them, and there's nothing worse than when you have a commission and you're just not feeling creative. And so I plopped down and said, "It's the first word in my head, spaceships." And then just for me and nobody else, I sat down and drew this spaceship from start to finish on the couch on an iPad Pro, and And now I've sold, I don't know, 50 or 60 of these.
It's a beautiful spaceship. Did you?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. And
did you live stream that or?
Not in this case. In this case, I just was like, oh, I just got to do that. But that also doesn't hurt on a live stream. Like sometimes what'll happen is I'll get on a live stream sometimes with my daughter Carter, who's also up there at school with everybody, and we'll use it as a way to just start to get creative. So that could be as simple as the chat room shouts out a bunch of words. We have this thing we call noun adjective or adjective noun. So it'd be like burping horse. Okay, as an example. And then we have to draw what we see in our head as a burping horse, whatever that may be. And that has a really amazing way of like shaking that stuff loose and getting you feeling creative and kind of getting those juices flowing. Now, that's different with podcasting, but not that different, or with streaming. The hardest thing I have right now is when I'm doing a series on a game and it's just a simple game stream, which I do pretty frequently. There are nights where I'm just not in the mood, especially if it's like some horror game someone donated and I'm like, oh, I got to get through Resident Evil 7 or, Little Nightmares 2 just came out. I've been playing that. That thing is way more freaky than it has any right to be. But there are nights where I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I just don't want to play. I don't want to play for an audience. I want to play for me. Like I want to have game time for me. And it's important that you do that for yourself. Don't think that every minute of your life needs to be content, because you can end up in some really sad messes if you do. Like don't see every moment as, oh, I should have Instagrammed that. Oh, I should have streamed that. Like if you just want to escape into your favorite video game and play Mario Odyssey all night with nobody around, then do it. Because you need that, not just as a gamer, but just for your mental health to kind of stay sane. And I promise if you do that more, then it becomes less like work and more of the thing you love doing, so that your creativity's recharged a little bit. You can come back to it. But most of my shows are like this conversation. Look how much I've talked. I'm a blabbermouth. I like to fill every empty space I can with talking. And that makes me perfect for audio and radio, or video for that matter. So every day we do a morning show. It doesn't matter if we're not inspired that morning. I'm still going to fill it, and I'll find a way. There's always a way. There's always something to talk about, to riff on, to laugh at, and it's never failed me. We've been doing that show since January of 2011, so just hit our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
And that's almost 2,800 and something shows. And there's not a day where I go, oh, I can't do that. Like we just do it. So part of that is just doing it. Like get the job done, but always keep some time for yourself and don't try to fill your entire day with content.
So if I'm hearing this right, treat it like a job, take breaks like a job.
Yeah. Like be a better boss. Like I used to complain that when I worked in the real world before all of this, that my boss was kind of a jerk and whatever. I'm way more of a jerk to me than he was to me. Like, I don't let myself have time off. I'm terrible about weekends.
Yep.
I'm just bad at it. And you need to try to be better at it if you can. That stuff matters. Giving your time off matters. Don't feel guilty about it. You already know you work hard. Don't try to fill every second with that stuff, or you'll just burn out. Like, it's just good old-fashioned burnout. Everyone needs a break. So
love it. So Hex Omega 17 asks, when you first started out streaming, was branding a major consideration for you, or did it just jump into the online space?
That's a great question. I don't think I'm traditionally very good at the branding side. Like, I know there's more I could be doing, and I could be even today doing a better job. But for me, it was just going for it. Like, kind of commando style, just like let's just go. Like put content out, make a show, put it out, see if anything happens. If it's 5 people, fine. Okay, next time we'll get 6, and then after that I'll get 10. Like, I didn't really care too much about hitting goals as much as I just wanted to just get it out there. And my theory was, if I did that enough, people would collect around it. Like, we would gather moss on the stone that rolled down the hill. And I was right to a degree. These days I do have to worry more about branding. I just have to, think about it more and inject it more or whatever. And, my online presence needs to reflect that and that sort of thing. But honestly, in the early days, I was just happy to be able to make this stuff. There was enough satisfaction in just the fun of doing it that all of that didn't matter. I didn't care. There was no plan. I had no plan in the beginning. The plan was make stuff and have fun and have it be around stuff I'm passionate about. Video games, movies, tech, whatever. It's my nerd world, and that's how I did it.
So tell us about Frogpants. How did that brand congeal? How did that come to be?
So back in, early 2000s, I registered a domain, frogpants.com, and I did it because my wife and I had this idea for a bookstore, a kids bookstore, where we would sell kids books, and they could come and gather there, and there'd be bean bags everywhere. And we just wanted this like really cool kids bookstore. And we thought Frog Pants sounded like a fun name, and it'd be like a frog with pants on, and just we had all these ideas. Anyway, that happened. We never could get around to the bookstore, but that name, I still owned it. It was just sitting there. And right around 08 or so, my accountant says, all right, are we going to do this? Are you going to go for it? And we were like, I'm going to incorporate. I was going to go off on my own. We had all these plans. And he says, well, we need a name. And I said, well, I've got some domains and they need, I need a web presence. So let's go with one of these domains. And I picked Frogpants as the one to use. And thinking then that would be a fine company name and also a little bit weird and catchy or whatever, but also that didn't mean that we couldn't eventually have a Frog Pants bookstore for kids or a Frog Pants cafe or whatever we wanted. So yeah, that's for the whoops. It was never, we never knew for sure what we were going to do with that name until we did it. But I'm glad we did because it turned out to be recognizable. People remember it. It's all been good in the hood since I picked it. But it was at the beginning, it was just kind of a weird name I liked.
I love it. Okay, so someone else asked, how do you change your branding from after grinding the one niche to being more experimental?
Oh man, so one of the challenges for me has been I've always tried to jump on whatever the trend is and use it. That includes the earliest days of the internet, just seeing it evolve very quickly and going, okay, I can do this, I can do that, I can do this. Oh, that's a thing that can be done? Well, then that means I can do it. So I'll do that and I'll figure this out. I'll teach myself programming. I'll teach myself this and this and this, and I'll be ready when I can put up my own stuff on the web and everyone else will be struggling to learn it, but I'll know it already. That was kind of my attitude. And it's been true ever since. So, when twitch.tv was justin.tv, I don't know how many of you even know that history, but it's pretty crazy. I had an account on there. And before that, I had a live stream account. Before that, there was no live streaming. So you were kind of stuck. And so, I had a YouTube account before any of my friends had one. I had, Facebook and Twitter and everything else, Snapchat, whatever. I had these things before my kids had it. like I always try to stay up on that stuff because you never know when a platform could come along that you can't just jump on and take advantage of. So it's challenging because you may, like I went all in on podcasting, which is still big and growing. But it's big and growing in different for like the famous people, like I mentioned the comedians earlier, they all seem to have hit podcasts. There's massive growth where they are.
Yeah.
There's moderate good growth where I am. And then on this end, there's a giant sea of people struggling to get anything heard. And jumping in on that early benefited me because here's where I'm at and I'm happy with where I'm at. The fear is that always something's going to come along. And if you're not quick enough to take advantage of it, you're going to get left in the dust. So being able to pivot and be flexible and learn new stuff and understand new forms of content consumption, things like TikTok, things like cryptocurrency and non-fungible tokens, which is a whole other thing you may have classes on these days at school. I don't even know. It's a long story. I won't get into it, but I'm having to crash course all that stuff as it comes at me. So being able to pivot is really important. More to his question though, pivoting to do more experimental stuff, really that was just a matter of saying, all right, I've got these shows, I've got these things, they're my staples, they're the things that are like holding it all together. So what can I do outside of that that's a little bit different and weird? Like I want to do an 8-part series on the most influential arcade games ever made. And it's like a documentary style audio only series that I want to do on podcasts. And I want to crowdfund it and I want to do all this stuff. I've got co-hosts in mind. I've got some production people I want to involve. And I want it to be like a big time production. And it would go deep on like Joust and Pac-Man and Defender and these games that were just so influential in my childhood, but then also extend way out into our modern era. Mario starting as Jumpman in original Donkey Kong, but look at him now, like most recognizable mascot in the history of video games. There's a really fascinating series to be told there. No one else is really doing it. So I want to do that. That's not something I would ever launch outside of all this other stuff holding down the fort. You understand what I'm saying? It's just a little too out of nowhere. But because I've got the credentials, I have the listeners already, I have people who'd be interested in me doing something new, much easier now for me to pivot and say, well, I want to do this weird new thing, even if it's brief or not permanent, but it's an experiment I want to try. And it feels good to be able to do that. I think there are a lot of artists that do that. Musicians do that. Film directors do that. They get to a point where they can say, all right, well, I'm known for this, but now I'm going to go do this weird thing because I've always wanted to. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And I figure if you don't take advantage of it while you can, you're just never gonna, because time doesn't stop for anybody. We're all getting older, no matter how young you are. You got to do it while you can do it.
So true. So someone just asked, and you kind of answered this about technology, but has it been difficult keeping up with the technology? And then someone asks, do you TikTok?
Yes. The answer is yes to both of those. I mean, of course it's difficult. Everybody wants to be, the first big thing on whatever big platform there is. And so for a lot of gamers, it's, I don't know, probably PewDiePie, because he's still got the most subs of anybody on that platform in the gaming space, maybe total still, or whoever really hit it big the first time in something like Fortnite or a massively popular game, and then having their name associated with that game is a big deal. Like, everybody wants that, but these things come and they go, and it's easy to miss them, and it's easy to forget that there's a lot of people trying to do what you're doing, and so it can get discouraging. The number one advice there is try not to be discouraged by that stuff. Realize that you are trying to be a unique snowflake inside of a winter storm, where every snowflake is unique and they're all vying to be noticed. And it's difficult to get noticed with that much competition. So if you can get just a little bit of notoriety, you can then build on that, even if it's just a little, and you can just build on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And don't expect it to happen overnight, or you will 100% be disappointed and you'll slink off and never try again. Go into it knowing that this is the long haul. Do it because you love doing it, not because you think this is going to be your giant break. If it ends up being your giant break, then great. Then you both love it and got your giant break. But you don't want to do it because you hate it, but you're just trying to get your giant break, because that will probably never come.
So there's the technology changing, but then there's also the incredible amount of social media, streaming platforms, video platforms. And I'm looking at your website, and you've got like a pretty good list of all the media content that you have to keep track of. How the heck do you do that?
Well, again, a lot of it accumulates over time. For example, let's take a look here at this is the page that has all my podcasts that are currently in production. I do a couple show with my wife. The Instance is the WoW show. There's my morning show. There Will Be Dungeons is my D&D show. There's video games, Film Sack, all this stuff. They all do their different thing. I think it's eight active shows, plus a couple things are in the cooker right now. And that alone would be enough to say, well, that's your whole thing, right? That's what he does. But if you start digging around my site, you find out, he's got an entire webcomic called Fred and Can, about a guy that lives with a sentient can of cream corn and all the stories that he goes through. And there's tons and tons of these, and these go up every week. And
so is Fred and Can going to be an Amazon original soon, or what's going on with that?
Man, I mean, one would hope, but one would doubt.
I just saw that Invincible, they're making a...
Oh yeah, that comic's great. I'm excited about that. That'll be awesome. Hopefully it's nice and gory. But anyway, then they'd hop over to my art stuff and say, oh, well, he's drawing all the time too. So there's just constant amount, or everyone plays. There's my sus Among Us character. He's obviously got blood on his hands. Anyway, I'm just constantly drawing and putting that stuff up here, various kinds of art and different takes on different things. And then there's the whole, and that goes on for miles. Then I've got from 2001 until just last year, this thing called Extra Life, which is a comic series that I did every week. And that goes on for another million miles. So I guess what I'm saying is, in a weird way, I'm just sort of addicted to creating content, and it's hard to stop when you love it and you tell a lot of dumb jokes, like this Doctor Who joke. It says, Doctor Who is thrilled to arrive at his 50-year anniversary. As usual, doctors how, why, and when were petulant buttholes about it. So it's, dumb joke, but hey, I drew it, I put it up, I made it happen. And why? Well, because
and it made me laugh.
To get it out. There's Zombie Bambi, who I call Zambi, another example. And I've got miles of this. I've got a whole book of these that I published in 2015, and that's just scratching the surface. There's so much more to what I'm doing. But once you get going, then it's just a matter of, well, this is where having some knowledge about how the internet works and how to store things, and how to run things, and how to do sites and all that benefits you, because you know where to put it all, you know how to organize it. That stuff's not just all foreign to you. I have a lot of artist friends that don't know what to do with their stuff. They don't know where to put it.
So do you have help organizing, distributing, doing all this, or is it a one-man show? Like what?
Well,
what
kind of store. So I have a store on the site that sells prints and stuff, and that I have somebody helping me with that. I have a logistics guy in Virginia who ships all my prints and manufactures all that stuff. So if I draw a deck of cards or whatever, he handles the manufacturing and the shipping of all that stuff, handles all the orders. He started with me in 2012, I think. So as things started to grow, it made sense that I bring somebody like that in. My wife helps with a lot of stuff here, the accounting side of it, the business side of it, that sort of stuff. She's technically a partner in the company as it is. But other than that, no employees really. Try to keep it simple and not too chaotic. And, I don't want to bring too many people into my weird world. I don't want it to crash down on other people. I feel better if this all crashes down around me one day. It'd be better if it was just me who was affected by it. But yeah, you get help where you can get it.
The amount of time that must take is...
Well, it represents a lot of time past. Like, I've made a lot of stuff over a lot of years, and actually right now it is kind of hitting me how much that is. I don't think about it very often, and I think that's part of the trick is don't think about it too hard. Just crank it out and have it and make it and give it to people, and before you know it, you can make money. And
then that's all a product of consistency, right? I mean,
consistency is everything. Yep.
So of all the technology that we kind of talked about, which one is your like bread and butter? Like if you had to pick one platform that you would focus on, can you do that, or is it all contingent on each other?
If it came down to that and I couldn't do, oh man, that's a really good question. No one's ever asked me that before. Oh man, I think I probably would, I hope I would always be able to continue the art side for sure. But if I had to drop something to focus somewhere, it would probably be the podcast. Cause right now those represent the most consistent revenue.
Okay.
Whereas the art side can be up and down a little bit. You can have really good highs and then some dips in time, and it's just not as consistent. So probably that, but also, look, let's say I'm 80 and I can't draw anymore because your hands give out. Chances are I could still talk, So if I want to keep doing this till I'm dead, then probably would prefer the art to go away first. But I just hate that idea. I'm really glad both exist, but I've never been asked that. That's super interesting. If I had to, but it's a little bit like saying if you had to get rid of 2 of your kids and only keep one, which one would you keep? It's a little like that.
That is tough.
It's hard to pick. I don't know. It'd be really hard.
So your podcasts, are they? You record them typically on Twitch, or how do you usually?
So I use Twitch to stream them, but I don't. All the audio production, pre-post, and live production happens separately. As far as tools, I'm a huge fan of Adobe Audition. I use it for everything audio related, and have for ever. It's awesome, and a lot of that stuff's happening simultaneously. But really, Twitch is just sort of happening while I produce the show. I do some scene switching, camera switching, show web pages when needed, that sort of stuff. Guests when they come in via that. But I've got it set up in a way now that it's all a lot of shortcut keys, very simple for me to run, and nothing too crazy. Here's a little tip for you. So OBS has, and specifically this is just raw OBS, not talking about Streamlabs OBS or any other fork of the OBS open source project. Just regular old vanilla OBS has this one trick that I've always used and I really like. And a lot of people don't know about it. When you set up your scenes in the scene pane over there, you can add and move them around or whatever. If you give them numbers, so let's say number 1 is your camera, number 2 is my camera, number 3 is a web page, number 4 is a thanks for watching logo or whatever. You number those, like literally put that in the wording. So it says, Scott Cam, but up in front of it says 2 dash whatever. Then when that window's up front, those are hotkeys with your numbers. So you can basically, it's not meant to be that way, but that's just kind of how it works. So I can just have my hand just lightly on the keyboard and go, in fact, I'll do it now. Let's go back to 6. So 6 is my screen, 3 is me. So I'm literally just jumping back and forth. Oh, 6 is, sorry, 5. Jumping back and forth like this. And on the shows, it's usually me and a co-host, and we can switch back and forth with our cameras. I can have this fade on or no fade at all. Probably just don't need the fade, so I don't know what's on there. But, create quick cuts like that. Go straight to, in fact, this is the TMS logo right here, where we usually have our little countdown, 5-minute countdown before the stream starts. Just some nice video and music going, although you can't hear the music. But the point is, I can switch between those without having to use a mouse, without having to hunt it down. I just know that I'm 3 and you're 5. Beep, beep, beep. Or 3 and 4 is usually what I do.
I think you just changed my workflow.
Yeah, it should help. It's helped me immensely. No. And I just figured it out. But I am happy to share that with anybody who wants it because it's great. Now, for whatever reason, Streamlabs OBS does not care if you number them. It just doesn't let you basically can't fake the hotkeying. I really like it.
I've had this sitting on my desk for 2 years.
Oh, you should use that. Those are good too. I have one as well, but I don't use it anymore because of this.
To do exactly what you just said. that I can just key to the hotkeys, and I'm like, okay, I don't need the Stream Deck anymore. I
mean, if you only use, again, base OBS, then yes. If you're using Streamlabs or something, that thing you just held up worked well. But I will admit, I got rid of Streamlabs in favor of this because of how easy my keyboard mapping was. And it works alphabetically too. If you want to just do A, B, C like that, you can. But since everyone's numbers keys are right up there on their keyboard, that way I'm spending less time worried about camera switching and any of that stuff. I don't have to think about it. It's just natural to hit 3 and 4 between me and my co-host, and the rest of it is happening on audio. It's all being saved. It's a little multitasky, but not so much that it distracts me.
Well, now because I'm a lazy streamer, right? And so what you just taught me, now I've always wanted to do like the close-ups for when I'm just chatting and then get back into the game. Right. Oh man, that sounds like the easiest thing. So that's great.
It really is easy. Yeah, it's something. And it's not part of the official package. It just works that way, and it's great. I can't recommend it enough. That is awesome.
So yeah, as we continue, what about hardware? Tell us about the hardware you use.
Well, for video game streaming, I've got a overkill PC over here with a 3080 in it, like all the latest stuff. I have a promotional deal with a computer manufacturer, a PC gaming manufacturer, that they're always sending me new stuff. So that's not a fair. not everybody can just run out and buy one of these when they're brand new every time there's a new one every 6 months or whatever. But
so do you do advertisements for them, or?
Yeah, I do trades with advertising. I sponsor a bunch of streams with them. So their logos on stuff, that sort of thing. And I bring them up all the time on my bigger gaming shows. So we just kind of have a good special relationship with those guys. And I use that for game streaming pretty much 100%. This conversation we're having now and all my podcast stuff and this stream I'm using actually OBS right now as a virtual camera. That's how you're seeing me switch around. But all of that is a Mac. So I'm running everything on one of the new Mac M1 minis that runs everything I need. And I vastly prefer it over Windows in terms of functionality and audio subsystems and that sort of stuff. So I'm a little bit of a both formats in the house kind of guy, or in the studio, and use whatever one works best for the scenario or the situation I'm in. And all the podcasting stuff's just much easier, much better, much tighter production and workflow on my Mac than it is on my PC.
What would you recommend for anyone just starting out as far as microphones, webcams, like?
So the camera I'm using now is a little overkill for beginners. So I would probably say start closer to Logitech makes a new webcam it may just be called Streamer Cam.
I think so.
It's a little square thing. It's much different than their little wide load thing they usually have. I have one of those over there, but that's a great camera, like legit. And for the price, like they're under $100. They're awesome, or they were last I checked. Although pandemic cameras, everything went up, so I don't know. It's hard to say anymore. But that's an awesome camera. But pretty much anything from Logitech in that line of streamer cameras are pretty good. The C90E.
Yeah.
I think is the other one. I forget the names.
I think that's
those are all good and relatively inexpensive. OBS we mentioned, free software, connect to Twitch, YouTube, wherever you want to stream live. You don't need anything special there. Does the job. Streamlabs is cool. But it's just a fork of OBS. It's the same core software. They just add a bunch of their own stuff on that. That may be your thing. It may not be. I like it on PC. Hate it on the Mac. Let's see. Microphone. I use a PR40 from Hail Sound, which is kind of expensive. These are like $450 mics, but you can do a lot with like a Snowball. What's the brand? Blue. Yeah, Blue. The brand Blue. They make those Snowball mics. They're kind of ugly, but they sound amazing. The other kind you can get is what do they call the Yetis? The Blue Yetis. Also, I have another one of those over here with the World of Warcraft logo on it for reasons, but those sound really good. You can control a lot about how those sound, especially on PC. So you can get started with, one of those and maybe work your way up to a nicer studio mic later. But if you're not heavy on the audio production side of things like I am, then this is overkill. You don't need this. Got a mixer over here so I can kind of control in and out and how much volume I'm getting on stuff and various inputs. This one's overkill. It's 12 ports. I really only need 4, but it was on sale. So I'm not really brand specific on that. Just a decent mixer. That's really all you need. I mean, the mixer you don't even need. The mixer's there for special stuff, but you could get by with like, let's say, I don't know, a couple of $100. Camera, boom, you're in.
Surprisingly less expensive than maybe it used to be to get into streaming.
Yeah, and have it be decent. Like that's the other thing that's changed a lot. It used to be garbage when you'd be in that price range, but that stuff is, you can get good stuff.
I think
entry levels now.
How important to you is lighting?
Kind of important, although I don't think I'm particularly good at it. Like, so right now I have an Elgato, I forget what they're called.
Key light?
Panel. Yeah, key light over here. And then I have this cheap ring light that I got on Amazon for cheap, $14 or something. And between the two, that's kind of my overall general lighting in here. This camera is not set to do, it's kind of, it can change. So if I hold my hand up and I move away, you can see it's like we're getting white balance up and down. So I'm not a very good example of this, but it's good enough. It does the job. I use this for the World of Warcraft Q&A hosting I did last month, and that was like in front of 1 million people or something, and that went great. So I can't complain about that camera too much. But lighting matters, especially if you're going to do green screen. So it's particular to your class and the whole idea of game streaming. It's not here, but I got a big green screen over there if I ever need it. Lighting really matters with good green screen transfer. So if you really want that composite to work, you want to get a little backlight down here. These lights up here kind of shooting over this way. That can be tricky, and usually you just have to fiddle with it to find your best spot. But
yeah, they are a pain for sure. Okay, so Hex asked, from beginning to now, did you compare yourself to or try to emulate someone in the same space as yours?
Oh, that's a great question. No, not really. If anything, I don't know if this is good or bad, but if anything, I was kind of rebelling against anything anyone else did. Part of that was me wanting to try to find my own space and own it as best I could. But I guess there's inspiration. Like, there's an old radio show I used to listen to when I was young that I thought was a cool morning show, and I think morning shows since then have sucked. So part of the reason I started a morning show is because I don't like morning shows. I wanted to make something that was different and felt different, and I could be proud of or whatever. So a lot of what I end up doing, I do out of not rebellion, but I'll see somebody else doing a thing and go, well, I'm going to do the opposite of that, or I'm going to do this thing over here that I think is just a better way of doing what they're trying to do. So no real like direct inspiration in that regard. On the art side, though, I have lots of people I would point to as inspiration. Like, too many to name, but comic book artists, and a guy named Mort Drucker just passed away. Was a Mad Magazine guy forever, and when I was a kid, he was the king, man. I just loved everything he did, and he died recently at like 89 or something. He lived a nice long age, or life, but he had this just amazing style, and there are still things about what I draw that are kind of lifted from that dude, or at least inspiration from him. So yeah, on the art side, it's very different. I follow lots of inspiration and look for it in other people, but on the podcasting and streaming side, not really. I don't know, a lot of it annoys me.
Yeah.
So I don't really I didn't start out as a fan of it. I started out as a fan of the medium and knowing what you could do with it, but I really liked what everybody was doing with it. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't like what I'm doing with it. That's kind of the thing. But for whatever reason, it was more important for me to find my very unique and singular voice in this. And it didn't involve copying anybody, or not copying, but even getting inspiration from people.
Someone in the chat just said, I just realized you did the WoW Q&A for BlizzCon 2021.
Yeah, that was me. When was that? 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks, whatever it was. Yeah, that was a really fun thing. I did. So I've done that twice now. In 2018, I did it on stage at the event, and that was 28,000 people live in a room in a giant arena space in the convention center. And it was weird. I was less nervous then in front of all those people on stage with all those lights on us and everything than I was in this Zoom call, because there's something much more intimate about this. Even what we're doing right now is much more personal, and therefore, I don't know, like at the con, when I was on stage, I just kind of went, big deal. Like, they're all here because they want to be here, and they're all having fun because they paid $200 for these tickets. Nobody's having a bad time. So I'm not going to have to impress anybody. I just got to go up there and do the job and do as good as I can. And that's what I did. And it didn't bother me. This thing, I was terrified because it was just so much more of a close, quiet, connected, nervous little space. But it went well, and we had a really good time with it. But yeah, I've got a lot of really good relationships over the years with people at Blizzard, and sometimes they come to me for stuff, and I'm happy that they choose me. So it's nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I tell people this all the time. There's something different about speaking to a crowd versus on a Zoom call. I think because psychologically, it's like you're speaking personally to each and every one of those, whereas a crowd, they're just a big mass of people.
Yeah, they're almost like one giant loud person you can't see.
Yep.
Whereas here, you can see every single one of you, even if it's 500 of you, because they can do that with Zoom, or whatever the cap is, maybe 1,000 or something.
Yeah.
That's still just feels like you're in this little window and you can't escape it. And if they see that I've got too many stormtroopers, I don't right now behind me. Usually I do. I have all the Blizzard stuff still from the Q&A, but normally I got a bunch of stormtroopers back there, and you start thinking about all those little things like, are they judging me for having a scout trooper that's bigger than a regular stormtrooper, or whatever dumb thing
How dare
goes
you.
in your head. And it doesn't happen when you're on a stage. There's a production crew, like whatever. It was a really cool experience to try it both ways, and I am the first person to do it twice in the history of the event. But yeah, I think I'd take the live crowd again if I had to do it again.
Yeah,
I would.
It's different. It's different.
And there is something about that experience. Like, just, I went up there thinking, all right, someone in that crowd knows me, but probably not that many. And I went up there and I just said, hey, welcome to the WoW Q&A. I'm Scott Johnson. Some of you may know me as the host of the instance. And as soon as I said that, big eruption, just like everyone like really excited about that. And those are really nice moments because I did not expect it, nor did I ask for it, want it, whatever. I wasn't pining for it, but it happened, and it's a real boost. It's like, oh yeah, a lot of you have heard the show. Maybe only once or twice for this guy, and this guy's been listening since the beginning or whatever, but enough of you know what I'm talking about that it perked you up and had you cheer. That's a really satisfying moment to hear that. In those Zoom calls, you don't have that, even though we were probably talking to close to 1 million people that night or that morning. It didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
No, that's got to be a good feeling. So 8-Bitten just said, would you agree that the anxiety is somewhat based on the scrutiny of being in your own space? Is that?
Maybe. It's also just, there's a lot. Anxiety is a thing I've had to reckon with in my life just since I was a kid. So these provide both opportunities to face that down, but also learn why I do it, or what my triggers are, or what might make me feel worse or better, or how preparation changes that, or whatever. Like there's been an opportunity for me to face that and face it down, and it's happened through things like the BlizzCon events. It's happened through this Nerdtacular stuff. And those are ones I really get nervous at because I want to make sure everyone's having a good time. This is my event. I'm nervous that they're all, people flew in from Germany and France and freaking all corners of the world to come see that thing in freaking Snowbird. And I feel overwhelmed with the sense of like, I've got to make sure they've all had fun, gotten their money's worth, even though our tickets were super cheap and we don't really make money at the event. It was just more of I really want this to work out for those guys. Where at least with BlizzCon, it was like, they're in charge of their own good time. I can't affect the overall vibe of the event. I can just do my part for these 45 minutes.
Right.
And so, yeah, like all of this has been an exercise in one way or the other in facing down those fears. Everyone's going to have different levels of that. Some people are really cocky about it, and I don't know how they live or how they even exist, because I just don't know how it's possible. But I think it's healthy to be nervous. It's healthy to feel that those feelings are normal, and to be able to face them gives you tools to face it better the next time. So just got to keep at it.
So no online Nerdtacular this year?
No, we almost did. So we were supposed to have a regular one, and then we had to cancel it last year. Then we canceled the Vegas meetup. Like all the stuff we normally do got canceled. And then this year we thought, well, maybe it'll be back and we can do a regular one, but we didn't, who knew 8 months ago what things were going to look like. So then we talked about, well, maybe we do an online one. That's still possible. And we could throw it together much faster than the physical event, obviously. So I guess never say never. We might do something by the end of the year, but I don't know. I haven't decided yet.
Corinne, get on it.
Yeah, Corinne. She should do it. I'm yelling as if she's here, but
she's here. She is here.
Yeah, she's somewhere. She's in the valley. I know that.
So how many hours a week do you spend doing game streaming?
Depends on the week, but maybe 4 to 6 hours, maybe. This is not a good week for that though, because I got stuff all week. So it depends on the week. And that's one of the problems I have. I have so many other projects, and I have stuff I have to get done for the podcast, for the art side, for whatever it is, that I don't have nearly as much time to play games on stream that I want to.
So are those are just more by opportunity then you have
kind of. And that's the problem, right? Because we've just been sitting here talking about how important consistency is, and I'm not very consistent with my game streams because the other stuff takes priority.
Well, I think it's important to have your ABC priorities, right? Because the game streaming is I'm assuming they're more entertainment for you, and so it's are those rewards for when you have extra time, or are they?
They are. It is rewarding for me because I just enjoy it, but also, and it makes money. I mean, people come in there and they sub and do bits and all the stuff. And Twitch is a decent source of revenue for me every month, but that includes the shows and other stuff that I do live. I think it's just, I know for a fact, it may not be huge, but I know for a fact that if I was more consistent, let's say I had 3 nights a week dedicated to game streams, no matter what the game was, I know I would grow my Twitch business double to triple. I know I would, just because of that regularity. count on it, and they just know I'm going to be there, then I know I could improve that. The problem is I already have that kind of commitment with a billion other things. So I have to something has to give.
Right.
And usually it's that. So unfortunately, it's kind of my B tier commitment.
So what is your major, is it the podcasts that are your major stream of income, or do you?
Oh yeah. For when it comes to overall revenue, it's split it depends on when you ask, but pretty evenly with the art side. But as far as streamed content revenue, definitely the podcasts, because again, they're happening at specific times every day or every week, depending on the show, every time. So people have a calendar, they know when it's going to be, they get notifications, they show up. So those are definitely the bread and butter of the streaming side of what I do. And if I could get the game stuff in there more often, I know that would grow. I just don't have time right now. Maybe I'll have more time soon. I don't know. I've been playing this Loop Hero game. I may as well stream it. I don't know why I haven't been.
It's kind of weird. I even choose games that I'll stream, but then games I won't, because I don't.
Well, part of it is I'm always worried, are they even going to want to see this? Why would I want to see? And you can get in your head a little too much sometimes. I've had to just back off from that and go, look, I'm playing, I don't know, Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, and I feel like playing it, and I'm going to put it on stream, and they're either going to like it or not. Who cares? You sometimes just have to say that.
Yep.
And go for it. And also not force yourself to say, well, if I don't play League, then no one will come. Or if I don't play Overwatch or whatever it is that's the hot, top 5 stream game at the moment. Let's say Valorant right now. Valorant's huge. If you're not playing Valorant, then you're not doing it right. Don't do that to yourself. You got to play what you want to play. Those guys burn out hard. Hard. I've heard horror stories about some of them, especially Fortnite guys, who feel like that's all they can play to get any viewership. And they hate it. They don't want to do that. They want to play other stuff.
Yep.
So they just keep hoping something cool comes along. This Valheim game took everybody by surprise with how popular it is, and everybody played some of it. And some of those guys were like, oh, I can stop playing Fortnite for a day and play Valheim. Anything but Fortnite for a day. You don't want to get yourself in that rut, and if you can help it, you want to try to have some options. You don't want to be one game player or one game streamer. I don't think.
So Gamma asks, how did you advertise on how did you advertise on your podcast?
Advertise myself or advertise other people, or I guess
it's a good question. I'm assuming how do you make money off of your podcast?
Okay, so the podcasts themselves, there's a couple of different things at play. The morning show, for example, has a crowdfunding system that pays most of what we get for that show. There's some small ancillary ad money that comes in on that, but it's mostly crowdfunded, and we use Patreon for that. So people go and support our Patreon. That money pays out every month and pays for that show. There are other shows on the network that are 100% ad supported, and those are like what you think they are. They're deals we make with advertisers. I should say I make with them, where I'll say, hey, we're this many, this is how much we charge per episode. And they say, cool. And then they give us 5 of them to do in a row, and we do one per week for 5 weeks, and then they pay out based on that or whatever. Every deal's different. None of it's ever the same. I do work with a couple of ad networks that will come to me with some regularity and say, hey, HelloFresh wants to do a thing, or some mattress company or whatever. And then we'll work out the deal through them, and they get a little commission from it. But some of those ads come that way, and they just pay out every month like anything would.
So I was wrong. She actually wanted to know how you got people to hear about it.
Oh, hear about the show and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's a chicken and egg question, isn't it? When I started hitting it bigger in the earlier days, podcasting was much smaller. And so it would hit bigger. If you hit big there, you would hit bigger because there were less of an overall audience to catch it. And then you would just sort of build it from there. These days, really hard. Like I said earlier, you come out without any kind of notoriety, infamy, or, other fame or whatever, you kind of have to start from nothing. And if you don't already have something with you, it's really hard to get noticed in the pack. It's a gigantic industry now. There's so many podcasts, all vying for ear holes, and it's just not easy to get discovered like it used to be. It used to be easier, I should say. It's not impossible, just used to be easier. So in those early days, I didn't advertise anything anywhere. I just I do some forum posting in a place at the time called Podcast Alley. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was this place where podcasters would go and mention their shows and talk to other show producers and kind of hobnob and all of that network. And as time went on, all my stuff came from just organically, people would find it. And I just think that's harder order now.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to tell people that my template's the best template, because my template depended on some timing and being early, and it's not early anymore. So doing it now is a little trickier. Doesn't mean it can't be done. Plenty of examples where it is, but it's a trickier thing to get noticed now.
Are there any tech out there that you see at the moment that is still in early?
Well, I mentioned earlier this NFT non-fungible token thing. Basically, it's connected to cryptocurrency and some other stuff. I'm going to have to get into all the details, but basically what it could allow people to do is own parts of the internet in very specific ways. So let's say, I'll put a piece of art up here and give you an example. And this works for audio content as well. It's really one of the weirdest things. All right, here's a D&D character I created. All right, now let's do this troll. Okay, so up on my screen is this troll character I drew, and it's inspired by that Lord of the Rings game, the Mordor games. And if I wanted to now, through this new thing, this is the first time ever, I could sell a digital version of this on a crypto marketplace that says whoever buys this for whatever Bitcoin or Ethereum or even dollars, they're gonna own it, and they will officially be the number one owner of the first digital and the only true owner of a digital copy. It doesn't mean that you can't copy it a million other times, or that people can't throw this up on Reddit, or it can't show up everywhere. It still can, but they will literally own, and by blockchain, just like the way cryptocurrency works, it's provable that they own that digital version of it. Basically become owners of it. So people are selling their tweets. You can buy like an Elon Musk tweet and own it. And some people are selling this stuff for like the equivalent of hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a weird thing, but I'm about to post some of my first art. I have a friend who's doing this, and he just did it on a whim, and he's making like $500-600 per piece for him. If he does that with his audience, I'm going to get like a couple of grand each, and I just got to experiment and see how it goes. But it's all a very weird new thing. And if any of you are studying cryptocurrency or crypto markets or any of that stuff in school, some of this may sound familiar. For those who aren't, this may all sound crazy.
I don't know if we're even studying that at school very much.
Though, and it's weird. And you can do it with sound. So I've got a friend who's a big time podcaster, been doing stuff forever. He sold the original intro, the first 10-second intro of his original show that's now long gone, but it was this historic show. He sold that 10 seconds for, I don't know, $400 or $500. And it's just the audio. It's an MP3 file that, again, can be copied a million times. It's not the issue. It's that somebody now can claim, I own the only like limited edition digital version of that was ever sold. I bought it.
But they don't have any copyright power over that.
None. No, they don't.
Yeah,
they can't control it the way you could, like, if you go buy a baseball signed by your favorite player, now I've got the ball physically here. Other than theft and other things, it's sort of in my control, right? But that doesn't work for my art. If somebody buys that digital one print, they now can have it, and it's always theirs, and they are the registered owner of this thing. And it's really just bragging rights.
They get a claim.
Yeah. And it's identical to all the other copies that might be up on the webpage or on Twitter one day or whatever, except maybe those are bad JPEGs or whatever. But the point is that it could be duplicated a billion times. It doesn't matter. He'll show that he is the original owner, but he can't do anything about copyright. He can't do anything to enforce ownership or any of that. It's, like I say, weird. It's weird. But I'm just getting my head around it. It's the hot thing right now with artists and entertainers. Some people are selling the first digital copy of their new album. I forgot what the band was, but basically it's this idea, and somebody paid like 50 grand for it, and it's just the same. It's exactly the same bit for bit as the file we're all going to listen to on Spotify or whatever. But he's got this thing he can claim he bought, and it gives him some extras and stuff and whatever. But it's a weird new thing that, like it or not, and as weird as it sounds, what you don't want to do is hear this stuff and go, oh, that sounds stupid. I'd never do that. Right. Because it does sound stupid, and it does sound like something you'd never do. But it turns out people are. So you got to clear your head and go, is it for me? Does it apply to what I want to do? Do I have any place in this? And maybe you don't, but you got to look. So
so to tie that back to game streaming, and even what you were saying earlier, where would somebody want to watch me play this random game that I want to play? The answer is we live in a weird world, and yes, they would.
Yeah, they would. You're right. So, and I know there are some streamers who do extremely well for themselves, and all they play are weird, obscure, tiny indie titles or retro games, or they're speedrunners. Speedrunners are doing great. This is the time of the speedrunner. If you are fast at getting to the eighth world of Super Mario Brothers faster than anybody else and you beat their time, you're going to make bank on Twitch because that means views and that means notoriety. Like there's weird little subsystems of this ecosphere that people can make money and they don't even think of. And it's not skeevy or cheaty or weird. It's just finding out what the market is and then do you fit or not?
So I know we've been with you for a while. We probably don't have a ton of time. So just to answer some quick questions and ask some quick questions, we're going to be talking about branding next week. Any advice for my students as far as branding their Twitch page or their social media and how a cross-platform branding that can maybe help them out for the beginner?
It's actually simple stuff. It doesn't matter what your logo is. It doesn't matter what your header image is or any of that. What matters is that you're consistent across those platforms. So if you've got a Twitter page and you've got a lot of fans on there, I've got like, I don't know, what am I, 5,000, whatever it is on Twitter. The important thing has always been to be consistent about what I'm linking out to. So in your profile, if your main product is a show you do or a stream you do, put that link in there and put a note that says streaming every Wednesday at 4 or whatever it is. And that kind of messaging across your platforms, having them all point in the same directions and end up in the same place you want people to go, that's huge. Because what a lot of people make this mistake of having different names on different accounts. So your account on Instagram doesn't even come close to what your name is on Twitter, what your name is on Reddit, what your name is on whatever. And then finding you is just a pain. So you want consistency across the platforms, and whatever your meat and potatoes is, have everything point to that meat and potatoes without confusion. Just make it easy for people to follow the breadcrumbs and find out where you live. Not really where you live, but where you make your stuff. That's the main thing. That's 90% of the mistakes I see is people just willy-nilly with that stuff and none of it's consistent. And one takes you to a web page, the other one has a typo in it. Just they're all over the map. If you really are serious about it, you'll make it easy for people to find you.
So what about consistency and like color and theming too? Is that?
I mean, that stuff matters, obviously, if you have an eye for it, or especially like one of the benefits of having the art side is I could always do my own stuff and not have to hire anybody. If you can do that, great. But if not, then you may consider at the very least talking to somebody about what they think a good combo would be. But I don't think that's as crucial as the information and the fact that they can just find you. Like finding you matters more than anything. And part of that is making yourself searchable on those platforms. And so that includes Instagram, TikTok, and everything else. Try to keep your avatars the same across them. If it's all you making a funny face, great, but make sure they all are using it. If it's just you, or if it's just an image you drew, if you're doing art stuff, great, have it be consistent. Then people know that they've found the right you when they've moved over to check to see if you're on their favorite platform. They'll be forgiving of things like color and good logos and stuff like that. It turns out most people don't really care too much about that. Not in this space, because we're supposed to be unpretentious. We're supposed to be raw and uncut and not overly curated like old people. And like the corporate world or whatever, it's a little bit like guerrilla radio. We want it to seem a little Mad Maxy and not too perfect.
It really is. I mean, there are general rules, but then rules to be broken, right?
There's maybe some best practices. Like, everyone always says if you're doing YouTube thumbnails, always use a red background because it really jumps out, and then outline stuff in white and things like that. So you see a lot of people do their YouTube thumbnails the same. You're probably wondering why it's always a guy going like this, and whatever game he's playing, there's like another version of that, and then there's like white outlines and then giant impact font text going, is Mario really Luigi and was the whole time, whatever. It's because they're trying to grab you. And so there's some value to some of that stuff, but it's not all that. If your content's empty and lame, it won't matter how well you do that stuff, because who cares? They want the good content, and if you can catch their eye at the same time, great. That's not the reason they'll stay.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Before we let you go, did anybody in chat have any last questions you'd like to ask? And of course, we're on a lag, so it's going to take a second, but this has been incredibly informative. I would love to actually, this is a streaming class, but I'd love to sit and pick your brain on the crypto art stuff. I've actually been looking into it the last few days. You have to get an Ethereum wallet, and I'm like, This is weird.
It's super weird. It feels like, part of me feels like, is this like dark web?
But then I started comparing it to what we do with real money anyway. It's like, it's
all skeevy.
Yeah, it's all the stock market, all of it. And I'm like, why not?
The things we think of as like the mainstream things are the skeeviest in a lot of cases. because they were the most successful. So they end up being the weirdest. Like, it isn't all that weird once you get your head around it. It's just a matter of, my problem right now is that, to get money into a cryptocurrency, the price of Ethereum went from $116 for the amount I was putting in to 138, back down to 110, back up to 140, back down to the mid 130s, all within the span of about 4 minutes.
Yep.
So it's already like this weird micro Blade Runner tech business going on that's just like super new and different. It's not slow boat like real world, analog world. And so you got to get used to that. You have to figure out how to get real money into an Ethereum account. And right now they won't take my credit card because they don't trust debit cards from small banks.
Yep. So you have to buy
come up with other ways to get money.
Yeah, you buy your Bitcoin from Coinbase, convert that over to another. Anyway, so we have some questions. So Hex Omega asked, are there any products or techniques you use to mitigate physical or vocal strain while streaming or podcasting?
So this is a standing desk and a sitting desk. So that's number one. It's been really great to be able to just pop this up. I'd move the camera, but I don't want to do it right now. But normally that lowers, and then I can be like here in the frame. So I can stand when needed to. I usually sit when I'm recording or doing stuff like we're doing right now. I don't know why, just because I do. But then all the other work, most of the day, I stand. Whether it's typing, even just checking emails, whatever, I do a lot of standing. So that's one ergonomic thing. The other thing is just, get up and go run once in a while. You just don't sit too long and give yourself freaking giant blood clots in your legs or whatever. But other than that, I don't do anything too special. Like voice wise, I try not to talk too much. Like when I was in that BlizzCon event, I had to make myself chill because the way it worked at those events is it gets so loud. There's parties every night. I'm not really even a party guy, but I'm in them meeting people and you have to yell to be heard. And so I didn't want to wake up the next morning and not have any voice on that stage. So stuff like that, I guess. But like daily stuff, it's just talking. You don't have to do anything special. So streamers too, same thing for them. Yeah. Except again, you don't want to just sit there for 8 hours. You're that's not healthy. So give yourself breaks, get the crap up, move around, get a treadmill, whatever, and get your blood pumping a little bit. Solid advice. So Gamma Ray asks, where do you get your art prints made? So that's changed a bunch over time. If you're looking for, this is about to change though. So Costco, this is weird, but Costco makes amazing prints. They normally, it's for photos, right? You go in there, you can send them into their website and they'll print big format. There's some behind me, in fact, big format print sizes from any digital originals that you send them. They're meant for photographs, but it works for artwork. So I've used them for years when I need quick, local, get it done kind of stuff. And it's not expensive either. It's like one-offs, and you don't have to make 50 of them or 100 of them to get them done. So I did that for years, but I just got word that they're stopping soon. They're not going to do those much longer. And I don't know if it's pandemic related or what the problem is, but they're going to, after 12 years of using them, they're going to just suddenly stop. So, but there are other places that do it, Office Maxes, things like that. So you can do some of that for one-offs, but for all my mass production stuff, I use my guy in Virginia, and he has a local printer he's contracted with to do all his bulk stuff. So books, prints, posters, pins, stickers, all that stuff I do through him. So I don't actually have a good answer on that one. But if you're looking to do like small runs, Sticker Mule is really good. My daughter uses that for her stuff, and they do a lot more than just stickers. There, they do prints and all sorts of stuff, small size stuff. But places like that are good. But it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing bulk, it gets crazy, and you have to go to specialized sources like I do. Or if you're doing one-offs, you can get really great quality now at Costco, at least for a little while now. And if not them, then Office Max, Office Depot, those places. That's awesome. How important do you feel like your background is for your streams and podcasts? I used to really worry about it. I don't really anymore. Like, I just got a lot of crap behind me now. Some of it's my own artwork. Some of it's mostly Blizzard stuff because of that event. That tiger back there I drew is my World of Warcraft pet for my hunter. Some Blizzard stuff up there. The big Nerdtacular poster, that blue dragon there is one I drew. So it's a mix of my own art and stuff. For a while there, I was like having this green screen. I had to make sure the green screen was perfect and all the lighting was just right and change the background every day and going through all this stuff. And I just started to realize I don't think people care. I mean, they care, but what they really care about is that you're there and your personality is why they're there. They're not really that concerned about what's behind you. Anything that's behind you is oftentimes just fluff. It's not it's not the long term. So yeah, again, you want to catch some eyes maybe because you did something weird. Dr. Disrespect is famous for this. His backgrounds are ridiculous, but that's his gig. That's his thing. And he's also got kicked off Twitch, so I don't know what he's doing. I guess he's on YouTube now or whatever, but get the kind of chat room you deserve. But anyway, the point is, I don't think it matters that much. Just have some decent lighting, have a decent camera. Don't look terrible, but
there you go.
Have it be part of your personality. Like all this stuff is mine, and I'm nerd about it. I like the stuff I'm passionate about, so I put that all over the place. I got Fury Road poster over here. You can't see 90% of this. Comics all over here. Big Batman thing over here. I got a full size. Well, he's more like a 12-year-old sized stormtrooper over there. Boba Fett helmet, like just dumb nerd stuff. Those are the sorts of things people want to see, is extensions of you, not, ooh, his background's like an animated freaking grid from space. Like, nobody cares about that. Too flashy.
Yep. Solid advice. Yeah, I hate fighting with a green screen. And yeah, it's a pain.
It's the worst.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know we probably took more than you bargained for, but
it's totally fine. Always happy to talk to students, no matter what they're doing or what they're up to. And this is my fourth for us. I did 3 colleges back east. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 2 back east, 1 in California, and now this. And,
oh wow!
All so far in March. So it's something I enjoy, and I like it a lot, and I hope people got something out of it. And that whoever called us boomers at the beginning, maybe they rethink their stereotypes about generations. Maybe,
yeah.
Maybe some of us know what we're doing. we're not 85.
Oh, that's anyway, awesome.
No, it's been great, and they great questions in there, good interaction and stuff. You seem like you got a cool class going.
They are a good class. Thank you so much. And seriously, you've done 2 BlizzCons and 2 of my stream class, so I'd say they're pretty on par there. That's pretty
they're about exactly the same, right? No difference.
Give or take about 1 million viewers, but hey. You got to start somewhere, right? No. Good. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for checking this out. And we'll keep in touch. I will. And full disclosure, Frogpants, Mr. Scott, this will probably go up on YouTube. We'll put all your links and stuff underneath there. And
oh, yeah. Just go to frogpants.com if you're trying to find my stuff. It's all linked there somehow. So check
out the morning stream on Twitch. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun. We have a great time on that show. If you want to have a good laugh in the morning or later on the podcast, that's what it's there for. So check it out.
All right. Well, you have a good night. Everybody have a great night. And thanks again.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.
All right.